presentation during this time?
Madam Chair, this is Lorene. I could not hear him very well. Maybe speak louder. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I hear you well too.
Is this better now?
Yes, that is better. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, I was speaking into the speakerphone. To continue my presentation, do you want me to repeat what I just said, Madam Chair?
Yeah, let's go ahead and start back all over because I can hear you much clearly now. Lorraine, let's go ahead and restart the time again, and let's give Mr. Curtis the opportunity to present his information so that's clearly recorded. Thank you.
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, the 22nd Navajo Nation Council changed the Navajo Preference and Employment Act law, thereby taking away the investigatory authority from the Navajo Labor Relations as it pertains to Navajo Nation employees filing grievances against their supervisors. Since that time, since 2015, Navajo Labor Relations cannot conduct investigations for Navajo Nation employees if they have a grievance. All cases have to be referred to the Department of Personnel Management. In my packet that I have forwarded to Ms. Spencer for distribution, there's a report of yearly overall reports from the Navajo Office of Labor Relations, statistical information about how many charges were filed from Navajo Nation government employees for each year beginning 2009 to 2015. And then on the second page, on line 2A, we have the amount of restitution that we've won on cases that came before the Labor Relations on behalf of Navajo Nation government employees. Since that time, since 2015, the Labor Relations can only refer grievance complaints to Department of Personnel Management. And I do not know what the procedure is over at Department of Personnel Management. We have no communication with their grievance section as to how many complaints were dismissed or accepted, or how many were received restitution. In our office, though, we continue investigating complaints, grievance complaints from the private sectors, from schools, from other entities that have businesses on the Navajo Nation. So the 22nd Navajo Nation Council amended the Navajo Preference and Employment Act on November 14, or November 7th, 2014. And then the legislation CO-48-14 went into effect January 1, 2015. So since that time, the Office of Navajo Labor Relations has not conducted any investigations on behalf of Navajo Nation government employees. The new procedure is in the DPM manual, the Personnel Policy Manual, on how to file for a grievance through the DPM process. So, Madam Chair, as of to date, we've only been able to, since October 1, 2021, we've only been able to refer 27 individuals to DPM for action on their grievance. And Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm here. I also have two individuals on the line with me from my office. The first individual is Mark Amijo. He's a construction and employment analyst. And then I also have Gil Damon. He is our labor compliance officer with our office. Those are the two individuals I have that can answer some additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Curtis. So just to be clear, your presentation is now complete.
If I may, Madam, this is Gil Damon,
Oh,
Madam Chair.
Mr. Curtis, you are the presenter. Would you like to recognize Mr. Damon at this time?
Yes, ma'am, I would. Thank you.
Mr. Damon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. Again, my name is Gil Damon. I'm a labor compliance officer with the Office of Navajo Labor Relations. I'm the one that's responsible for investigating claims here with the office. When Navajo Nation government employees come to our office, we do explain the situation regarding the 2014 legislation, and that we are not allowed to entertain any concerns or grievances that are being presented to us by Navajo government employees. We also give them a copy of the legislation so they can go ahead and understand that, so they won't be indicating or alleging that we're not assisting them, but rather that it's a fact that legislation has been passed, that our arms are tied with respect to any concerns that they have. And we go ahead and refer them to Ms. Bigsum, who's the individual with Department of Personnel, and really appreciative of giving them the information. And some of them do have concerns that they rather have our office do the investigations. And I indicated that I cannot, receive their complaints with that respect. They will have to go to their specific council delegate to delegate for their concerns regarding any situations they feel is not being done on their behalf with respect to the new process. They indicated that our process, labor relations process, was more effective, was more neutral, and so on. So I went ahead and referred them back to their council delegate with their concerns. But if they were filing a grievance, I refer them back to the Department of Personnel. So I appreciate or allowing me to, speak, and you all have a nice afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Damon. Mr. Curtis, would you like to recognize anybody else to help assist with the presentation this morning?
I don't think there's anybody else that will be speaking.
Thank you for that, Mr. Curtis. We appreciate the presentation. So with that, committee members, are there any questions at this time for Mr. Curtis?
Madam Chair.
Yeah, you're on the line. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order, since we do have a quorum at this time. It is now 10:19. We are calling this Law and Order Committee meeting for the 24th Navajo Nation Council to order. Today is February 22nd, 2022. We'll go ahead and start with roll call. Sherelle, can you assist us with roll call? And just to be clear, Honorable Otto So is excused, but if you could assist us with roll call, please. Thank you.
Can I ask my question first before I forget it?
Honorable Eugene, so we need to call this meeting to order. Can you write down your question? Go ahead and ask your question. And then we'll pause and let Mr. Curtis think about that.
I'll ask the question after the
Okay. Sherelle, can you assist us with roll call, please?
Good morning, Law and Order Committee members and everyone listening in on the call. Roll call for Law and Order Committee 24th Navajo Nation Council Special Meeting via telecommunication, February 22nd, 2022, 10:00 a.m. Honorable Madam Chair Eugenia Charles Newton.
Charles Newton is present.
Honorable Madam Chair Charles Newton is present. Honorable Vince James.
Delegate James present.
Honorable Vince James is present. Honorable Eugene So.
Kasat tao. Thank you.
Honorable Eugene So is present. Honorable Otto So is excused. Honorable Edmund Yazi.
Here.
Honorable Edmund Yazi is present. Honorable Madam Chair Charles Newton, you have 4 members present, which constitutes a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Sherelle. So with that, we do have 3 members of Law and Order Committee who are present during this time. We'll go ahead and proceed forward to the invocation. I believe that there was an invocation provided this morning at the RDC work session that's happening right now at Twin Arrows. I could barely hear at that time, but does anybody know who provided the invocation at RDC this morning? We'll go ahead and find that out, but there was an invocation that was provided this morning through RDC that we'll just go ahead and use towards Law and Order Committee this morning. It was a nice invocation. I'm going to go ahead and find out who provided the invocation this morning. We're going to go ahead and go down to item number 2, recognizing guests and visiting officials. We do have 4 members of the Law and Order Committee who are present at this time. Are there any other delegates on the line? Not hearing anything, we'll go ahead and proceed forward to Office of the Speaker's Office. Do we have anybody from Speaker's Office on the line?
Good morning, Madam Chair. This is Nikita Kirk, Legislative Staff Assistant, and I'm on the call. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kirk. Do we have anybody from Office of Legislative Counsel on the line?
Good morning, Madam Chair. This is Lorraine Tapahi with Office of Legislative Counsel.
Good morning, Ms. Tapahi. Thank you for being on the line. Do we have anybody from Office of Legislative Services on the line? Sherelle, Lorraine, can you please introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah, Dave Bennett, Madam Chair, all members of the Law and Order Committee, and all those are on the call. Cheya Lorraine Spencer, Chia, Sana Jinin Chin. Purik Ojabashichin, Anahani Dashinan Kia Ani, Dashiche, Da Isanan Shinido. I work here at the Legislative Services Office. Thank you.
Good morning, LOC members and everyone listening in on the call. Shea, Sherelle, Nochi, and Shea. I'm the Legislative Assistant for Law and Order Committee. Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. I realize that every time we have introductions, for some reason, you guys never get to introduce yourself. So thank you both for being on the line. Do we have anybody else from Office of Legislative Services on the line? Not hearing anything, I will ask, do we have anybody from Judicial Branch on the line?
Yeah, Daya Bennett, Law and Order Committee members. This is Karen Francis from Office of the Chief Justice.
Thank you, Karen. Do we have anybody from the Office of President and Vice President on the line?
Good morning, LOC. This is Tamara Johnson with the Office of the President and Vice President.
Good morning, Ms. Johnson. Thank you for being on the line. Do we have anybody from the Department of Justice on the line?
Good morning, Madam Chair. This is Vernon Jackson with the Office of the Chief Prosecutor.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson. Thank you for being on the line. Do we have anybody else who I haven't called upon who wishes to introduce themselves on the Law and Order Committee call this morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. This is Desiree Deschini with the Department of Justice and the Human Services and Government Unit.
Good morning, Desiree. Thank you for being on the line. So with that, we'll go ahead and proceed forward to item number 3, review and adopt the agenda. Lorraine, can you go ahead and read the agenda into the record, please?
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the Law and Order Committee. Agenda of the Law and Order Committee, 24th Navajo Nation Council. Special meeting through telecommunication, February 22nd, 2022, 10 a.m. Presiding Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton, Chairwoman, Honorable Altoso, Vice Chairperson. 1, call meeting to order, roll call and invocation. Number 2, recognize guests and visiting officials. Number 3, review and adopt agenda. Number 4, review and adopt the journals. There's none. 5, receive reports. A, report from Ron Curtis, Program Manager 1, Office of Navajo Labor Relations on cases being referred back to Department of Personnel Management. B, report from Sergeant Tyler Lynch, PACE Supervisor, Ronald Silversmith, Police Captain and Chief of Police, Daryl Noon on gang/drug activities on the Navajo Nation. 6, old business, none. 7, new business. Discussion purpose, leadership meeting with Budget Finance Committee and Law and Order Committee regarding condition of appropriation, legislative concern for judicial branch, to select a date to have a leadership meeting. 8, close of meeting announcement and adjournment. And one thing I didn't put on the agenda was under discussion for March 21st, 2022, meeting with the Lechi chapter official at Lechi chapter in Arizona. Madam Chair, that needs to be added on. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Lorraine. We can, committee members, if one of you could please make an amendment to add on to the agenda under item 7, under discussion purpose. We do have a request that was sent to us by Lechi chapter. As you know, committee members, we did call upon Lechi chapter at one time, but we didn't have quorum at Law and Order Committee, so we weren't able to hear from them. And then the second time we did call upon them and they weren't on the call. So they did send an email requesting that we head out to Lechi and meet with the chapter officials to talk about some of the public safety concerns that are happening out there. Lechi chapter is just about 3 miles outside of Page, Arizona. And so there has been some questions regarding the cross commission agreement. I believe that was on the newspaper. So Lechi chapter is asking for public safety and Law and Order Committee to come out and meet with them to talk about some of their concerns and really how we can help them to get some assistance out there. And that, again, if you could make an amendment to the agenda to include that item onto item number under item 7, new business. It's just for discussion purposes and the date has been selected. So with that, committee members, are there any questions, any comments, or any amendments that need to be made at this time?
Motion to make that amendment.
Motion made by Honorable Vince James to make the amendment to add discussion topic 7 under item number 7, new business. And this is regarding the request from Lechi chapter for Law and Order Committee to meet with them in their community. Can I get a second?
Oh, okay, see.
Second made by Honorable Eugene So. So with that, committee members, we do have amendment 1 on the table. Are there any questions or any comments regarding amendment 1? Not hearing anything. Sherelle, can you assist us with a roll call vote for amendment 1? A motion has been established by Honorable Vince James, a second by Honorable Eugene So.
Okay. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate Jim votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote?
Vote Dodgers.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote? Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote? Honorable Madam Chair, you have 2 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 excused, which is Honorable Otto So, and 2 not voting, which is Honorable Madam Chair Charles Newton not voting, and Honorable Edmund Yazzie not voting, Madam Chair.
I vote green. Okay.
Okay, that makes Honorable Edmund Yazzie in favor. So that's 3 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 excused, and Chair not voting, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Sherelle. So with that, we do have a vote of 3 in favor, 0 opposed, Chair not voting. And this is to add discussion item, or I'm sorry, to add amendment 1 to the agenda. Committee members, we are back to the main motion, and this is the motion for the agenda. There's been 1 amendment that has been made. Are there any other questions, comments, or amendments that need to be made to the agenda at this time? Not hearing anything. Lorraine, can you go ahead and read the agenda back into the record with the, I'm sorry, yeah, with the amendment, please.
Yeah, yes, Madam Chair and members of the Law and Order Committee. Going to page 2, number 7, new business. Discussion purpose. So the second one will be on March 21st, 2022, a meeting with Reactive chapter official to discuss cost commission and other public safety concerns that the community has. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Lorraine. So with that, committee members, if there's no other questions, comments, or amendments that need to be made to the agenda, we'll go ahead and proceed forward to a roll call vote. Sherelle, can you assist us with that, please?
Honorable Madam Chair, do we have a main motion and second for that?
A main motion and a second for the agenda.
Yes. We only have the amendment made by Vince James and Eugene So.
Oh, you are correct. I do apologize. Committee members, I apologize for that. Can we get a motion and a second on the agenda?
Agency, that's it.
Motion made by Honorable Eugene So. Can I get a second?
Okay, Delegate James.
Second made by Honorable Vince James. So with that, we do have a motion, a second established for the agenda. I apologize. I jumped the boat there, but we do have 1 amendment. That amendment has been read into the record along with the agenda. So you can assist us with the roll call vote at this time now, Sherelle. I apologize for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote?
Vote Dodgers. Yeah.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote? Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Otto So is excused. Honorable Madam Chair Charles Newton, you have 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and Chair not voting, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Sherelle. So with that, the agenda is hereby accepted with 1 amendment. We're going to go ahead and proceed forward to the next item on the agenda, and that is to review and adopt the journals. There is none at this time. We are now on item number 5A, receiving reports. We did just get a report from Ron Curtis, the program manager for the Office of Navajo Labor Relations, on cases that are being referred back to the Department of Personnel Management. At the time, there was not a quorum. However, we just got through and we have established a quorum. So before we turn the floor back to the delegates to ask questions, I'd like to ask the committee members to establish a motion and a second. Motion made by Honorable Eugene So. Can we get a second?
Second, Delegate James.
Second made by Honorable Vince James. So with that, again, Mr. Curtis has presented to us information regarding those cases that are being referred back to DPM. And we did have Delegate Eugene So who was prepared to ask a question. Delegate Eugene So, do you still want to ask the question at this time? Delegate Eugene So.
Yeah.
Did you still want to ask a question?
Okay, we're ready now. Yeah, question. So, Chris Kandasi, Nation Ensign. Nahasneki. Ita. Banet Yanas Ilia Hosna, Ibena Azli. No, ye hati. 2015 say ya. Literally need a call Koti has Ani Hazeliaki. Ya. Ayo. Ashpin and Stospin and Nista. So not the Kitatia, but an Haloya. They have not seen it. A call. Keep on this case, I'll go. At that time, there's not one first question. Ila in Benjani on the question this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Shuja. Committee members, are there any other questions at this time for Mr. Curtis?
Delegate James here, Shanada Chair.
Delegate Vince James, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Shanada Chair. Other members of LOC, and then also Mr. Curtis, thank you for the report, and then also audience that are listening in. I do have several questions in regards to the report that you had provided for us. And my questions are going to be pertaining to what my colleague, Honorable Eugene So, has also indicated. What was the purpose and the reason of CO 48-14? One, was it too many files that were being done to your office? Two, was it because of lack of funding? Was the reason why a lot of these duties were pulled from ONLR for Department of Personnel Management to take over the responsibility? Was it because of that reason? Number three is in regards to the pandemic that we are currently in. I know that the CO 48-14 was signed into law on November 17, 2014 by Honorable President Ben Shelley at the time. And so at that time, I don't think there was no prediction of a pandemic that's coming forth. And so as of now, long story short, as of now, we have quite a few Navajo Nation employees that were asked to report to work during the pandemic, or if they didn't report to work, then they were going to be written up or released from position. So that created some individuals, some employees to report to work, but unknowing that if they reported to work and if they caught the COVID-19, in this case, let's say, for an example, if a correction officer was asked to report to work and one of the inmates, officer brings in the inmate, no clue about COVID-19. And in this case, the correctional officer received the COVID-19 because they were asked to come in because of short staff, whatever reason. And they still reported to work. They ended up coming into work, and they got COVID-19. And then at the same time, we as council, the funds came in for CARES Fund, and the CARES Fund came in, and we had requested for payments to be made to Navajo Nation employees who worked through the pandemic. And as of this far, they have not received their payment. I lost a word for it. They have not received the pandemic payment. And so they're still waiting for it because they worked and they did overtime. And so let's say in this case, DPM knows about the issue. DPM knows that, a lot of these timesheets weren't submitted. And then in return, DPM points finger back to OOC because OOC payroll did not submit, blah, 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 whatever it is. And so by this time, we've gone beyond 2 months, and this individuals have not received their what was the word for it? They have not received their payment, their CARES payment. Someone help me out. What was it called?
Hazard duty pay.
There you go. Hazard duty pay.
There's also well, Shanella.
What was it?
There was special duty pay, and then there was hazard pay. It just depended on the time frame in which employees were working.
Yeah, there you go. Hardship, but that's just another one. I just now remember. Thank you. So they have not received that payment, the hazard or the special duty pay. And so DPM is aware of that. They know the issue. And so they send it back, or they're pointing fingers to OMB, to OOC, whoever. And then in return, OMB points back to DPM and says this and that. And then DPM returns back to the program, the timesheet person, the timesheet individual did not submit it, whatever. And the listing goes on. So in this case, we have quite a bit of Navajo Nation employees that have fallen into this scenario. And they filed, and due to the fact that DPM is aware of it and they have the final authority to make that decision, or Charlotte Big Thumb has that final authority. And then at the same time, with the direction from the division director, Dr. Priscilla Fowler, I think there's a lot of initial plays that are happening among staff to say, hey, you know what? We knew what was going on. We knew who was at fault. So in this case, we shouldn't refer this grievance over to ONLR or to have this grievance move forward. I think a lot of our Navajo Nation employees are in that scenario at this time and point. So I wanted to share this scenario because I've had several employees currently, and then some that have resigned because they just got tired of saying, hey, I tried waiting for my hazard pay, my back pay for the hazard special pay. I tried waiting for that and I never got anything. And here, as of today, I'm still suffering because I was forced to go to work during the pandemic, or I was asked to come to work because of short staff, or because there was an order that was in place. And we have some employees that actually were in their position with their oxygen tank and were at the office working, and they really couldn't do anything. And this is their job, and this is their income to where they put bread and butter on the tables, that they had no choice. And at this point in time, when those employees move forward on trying to file, or if they file, the grievance process of the reason of their medical health and their conditions, their outcome from having the COVID-19, they file a grievance, and then all of a sudden they have retaliation, and their grievance is denied by DPM. In this case, it would be Charlotte Victim. In this case, it's denied, and that's it. So all that hassle that the individual, the Navajo Nation employee had gone through, it just ends. And it's just like, how do we take care of our Navajo Nation employees? And so I really want to know what the justification was of this legislation and the reason why it was put into place. But again, I don't think that this legislation, the CO 4814, is not working very well with the situation that we were in last year and then currently into this year. And so I think we need to address this, and I believe there's quite a bit of Navajo Nation employee that can contest to that something similar to the scenario that I used, and they're just out of luck, and I just don't know what to say to even some of the Navajo employees that have resigned because they couldn't do it. And so, if I can have a answer coming from you of why this legislation was put into place, and then the difference between this legislation with what the pandemic, what we went through with the pandemic, would be helpful to suffice for me to move forward on what kind of procedure we need to take again from here on out. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Delegate James. So with that, Mr. Curtis, I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor back over to you. If you could answer the questions or the concerns posed by Delegate Eugene So and also Delegate Vince James. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the Law and Order Committee. Thank you for your questions, Delegate James and Delegate Mr. So. I will try to respond as efficiently as I can to your questions and give you some insight into some of the concerns you have. I would also like to call on Madam Chair, an additional assistance from one of my staff, Mr. Gil Damon, regarding the history back in 2014 and 2015, why some of these responsibilities were taken away from ONLR. If he could explain some of that for the committee members. But before that, I would like to speak to the concerns regarding the COVID pandemic and the hardships that were created during the pandemic. There was a lot of complaints that we heard coming to our office, people calling us, expressing concerns that supervisors were not allowing staff to take COVID leave, which was outlined in the new DPM policy manual. Supervisors were not allowing COVID leave. Instead, they were telling employees they had to take their sick leave, which is separate from the COVID leave. Or else, when they exhausted their sick leave, they would have to use their annual leave. So there were those complaints that supervisors were doing that were not using the COVID leave procedures that was outlined by TPM. And then the other concerns is what Delegate James indicated was that people were told to come in to work even though they were sick, or they had family members that were sick, and that they were bringing COVID back to the workplace, or vice versa. The employee was taking COVID back from the workplace back to home and was endangering their family. This was a real big concern that became prevalent when the COVID was at its height in the pandemic. But we've heard a lot of concerns and issues about bad supervisors within the Navajo Nation government, not following grievance or not following the charge of a table of penalties in the personnel manual, and bypassing those and starting to create their own table of penalties in the workplace. And this is, violating the employees' rights, their right to work, the peaceful right to work. And there was a lot of harassment going on that we've heard complaints about it, but we couldn't address their complaints through our office anymore. We have to tell them you have to go through DPM. And they would explain their frustration with DPM just dismissing their case without any investigation and reasoning why, asking us why are they dismissing our case, and we had no idea why they were dismissing the cases at DPM. But that is what we have heard about complaints within the Navajo Nation government about supervisors not complying with the policy manual and just creating their own new rules, their own complaint section within their divisions or departments. We're not acting impartially for the employee. So there was a lot of harassment that was occurring in the workplace, and it still is continuing because we still get complaints that come to our office. With regard to the second question about why duties were taken away or why responsibilities were taken away from ONLR back in 2014, I'd like to ask Mr. Mike Armijo, the labor construction analyst from our office, to answer the question, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, you may, Mr. Curtis. That's fine. You can call upon your agent at this time.
Mr. Armijo, are you there? Can you explain?
Good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you. Good morning, members of the Law and Order Committee. My name is Michael Armijo, and I've been with the Office of Navajo Labor Relations. And to answer that question, it all falls back to concerns that labor relation was collecting too much money for employees, meaning back pay, interest, and all that. In reality, the only thing that we were collecting for employees were back pay, and that is already budgeted out for the employees at the time. So the time they were let go or disciplined without just cause or any written notification, we would take the cases of the Navajo Nation. And once we investigate the case, however long it takes for employer to settle a case, then we would ask for back pay that was already budgeted out for that employee, and then reinstate their fringe benefit plan. Also expunge any records that they might have in their personnel file, and that would be expunged. And then just reinstate it back to work. When we look at the stats, let's take example 2012, fiscal year 2012. We had 435 cases, and against Navajo Nation government, there was 118 cases, and which made 27% of that 435. And out of that year, we collected $355,628.89 in restitution alone. And out of that, for Navajo Nation government, we only collected $11,155.22, and making it 3.1% out of the 355,000. So, and then there was talks about Supreme Court decision saying that any employee didn't have to go through in-house grievance. They can go directly to Office of Navajo Labor Relations and file their complaint. Based on that, that's where that legislation was made. So Navajo Nation employees would have to resort to filing with Department of Personnel and utilizing the grievance process. And that's how I understand that legislation coming about. So with that, that's how that legislation was created and passed. So with that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Curtis, and also Mr. Damon. So with that, committee members, Delegate Eugene So, was your question answered by Mr. Curtis?
Madam Chair,
Delegate Eugene So?
oh, sure. You could, there has only Iliaki. The Quisi Penates of A. Penyahadalia. So Penates or Yaki. It, or Onal Ongo. In a decision, so yeah, B614. They beat I. A question case in the Sada Saja. Because AD bonds this case of in el so other to honey, so other Hanana, Sofido not so Katala of a car. Because this relationship labor, I see is no a but they have only passed a lot on so they have a real good story to the men of the city car, another what do the cases. But I go this. A call other you had aid and be paid and missionary, let's say some department had issued your needle or what are your own. Other you had to say, I don't need either that we can't get that off. What other about this case, either the other stop at that and so. As I have a legislation that I drew up with Dana in regards to a legislation that calls for other each side, basically in any other each side. AGG solved it. The compound this case of the ownership. So whoever's gonna make agreements, if their employee, what their manager or director or what they retaliate or putting this on in public or hot heavy to the ashkon the hot no one is so go the I let Arnold the Samsung it seems that it's really good, but and then again we're saying that at 10 Minahalan at 10 this appeal in date that on so if it was me, I would appeal it in a lot of ways, because this here, the legislation that had been approved back in 2014. I see, I had it. They have been not the I saw actually but on this. So, Madam Chair, it's even not this name that so. I had 11 alarms unless if why do we go forward with a lot of these complaints. Yeah, I needed James. Yeah, a lot. My wife was but because of COVID-19, she has a condition with her lungs, and from the doctor's order, the argument no, but that the manager, the one that's directing it, pushed her back in there, but doctor's order, so he landed, but still she got terminated. But that wasn't for the tribe, the federal government. So even now, thought about this case, even now, how would she would have retaliated, what would she would have done, something not installed, it seems that all the way to the top to Washington, she lost. The doctor's order didn't mean anything. Two doctor's order. So what I even now about this case, but now I feel like this legislation, this bylaws are kind of good here, but are we working with it? Are we doing anything for our people out there that are confronting these situations in their workplace? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Delegate Eugene. So Delegate Vince James, was your question answered?
Another chair, I guess it was answered, but I do have additional questions, follow-up.
Okay, go ahead and ask your follow-up.
Yeah, Shanada, staff, thank you from ONLR for responding to my question. In regards to the legislation or the CO 48-14, under subsection 614, the grievance procedures for Navajo Nation government employees. I know that one of the big issue was that, let's say a Navajo Nation employee files a grievance, then that position number is put on hold. Was that also one of the factors, the reason of why this legislation, CO 48-14 was established? Because I know reviewing the subsection 614 that if any position is held as grievance, they couldn't advertise the positions or they couldn't do anything with that position until the grievance was taken care of. So that will be my first question. And number two, in regards to my follow-up question is, do you guys have some kind of a database information or at least some numbers of how many Navajo Nation employees had come to you requesting your assistance during the pandemic, or of the issues that they received from their supervisor through the pandemic? Do you have some kind of database information or some kind of login information that you guys would have that you could share with the committee to give us an understanding of what kind of numbers we were working with, or a percentage that we were working with as an overall of the Navajo Nation employees numbers? So in regards to data information, that will complete my first question and my follow-up question. Shanala, thank you.
Yeah, Chanel, Honorable Vince James. Since these are follow-up questions, I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members of the Law and Order Committee. With regard to the number of cases that or complaints that we've heard since the pandemic, as a staff together here in Window Rock, we've had roughly 27 individuals that tried to file a complaint with our office during this pandemic time. And I believe it would have been more, but more people are learning that labor relations cannot investigate tribal employee complaints or grievances any longer. So that's why we haven't heard any more people coming in and asking us for assistance. But so far, 27 have asked for our assistance, and these people probably are not aware of the new changes in the law that they have to go through the DPM grievance process. So that answers Mr. James' question. The other concern is that when this legislation went into effect, it also had a domino effect against ONLR. And that domino effect was that we had to reduce our staff because there was less funding that was going to be available. And we had to reduce from 16 staff down to 6 now. So we have only 6 staff on board. And back in the early 20s and mid 20s, when we had 16 employees to total at all the 5 agency offices. And now we don't have any more agency offices. The whole office is centralized in Window Rock. So if somebody has a complaint from Tuba City or from Shiprock or from Utah, they have to come all the way to Window Rock and file a complaint. However, we do have a process online where we can, someone can file a complaint online and send their complaint online to us, and then we will contact that individual and conduct a follow-up investigation with them and their employer against who they have a complaint with. So our staff are very good at following up with the charging party and getting in contact with them to inquire about the specifics of their grievance case and follow through with them. We try to expedite the investigation as much as possible and try to get them back to their job and try to get them restitution or back pay. We try to do that as much as possible, as quickly as possible. I'd like to, Madam Chair, refer the rest of my presentation with regard to Mr. So's question over to Mr. Damon of my staff, who can answer that question in full. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. Mr. Damon?
If I understand the question is, Mr. James's other question was, do they hold off on the positions until investigation is completed? I believe it was being done when we had jurisdiction over Navajo Nation government employees' complaints. And I think that was one of the ones that was one of the concerns regarding the legislation, where those were one of the reasons in that it took a long time for individuals to file. Right now, under the policies, the employees have only 20 days to file. And before that, they had a whole year. And some employees, they know the law. They're pretty smart. So they kind of say, well, I know I'm going to win this case, so I'll hold off as long as possible to get as much back pay as I can. And some of them, we do find that they do file like 2 months after the action has taken place against them. And sometimes they win, and, you know, by the 3rd month, they get the whole back pay. But under the new legislation, where the individual has to file within 20 days, I believe that process takes less than a month. So I don't know if that was one of the reasons why the legislation came through. So with respect to Mr. Honorable So's question, the reason is probably that also, and also what Mr. Curtis indicated, that those are the various reasons what came on. But the main reason that I heard was that it was costing the Navajo Nation a lot of money. But as Mr. Armijo gave you the statistics, it was only 3% of the whole restitution that was given back to the employee with respect to individual Navajo Nation employees. So I don't know what other questions you might have for me directly. I can go ahead and answer since I'm the one that does the actual investigation. Madam Chair?
Thank you for that, Mr. Damon. So with that, committee members, are there any other questions or comments at this time? I don't have a question.
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, hold
Madam
on.
Chair.
Honorable Eugene, so hold on. Lorraine, can we get a copy of that CO-48-14? Can you have that sent to the delegates to Law and Order Committee?
Madam Chair, I sent them out this morning. I can send it again if you haven't received it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got the PACE presentation. Oh, no, and then I got the LaChi. Is it the ONL report? Oh, yes, it is. It's on the ONL report.
Yes.
Lorraine sent that at 8:33 a.m. So we should have a copy of that legislation in case delegates, you want to take a look at that. So with that, Delegate Eugene, so the floor is yours.
Of course, let's say there's complaints like as council delegates, it seems that we get a lot of them, but all you have to see other oversaturated by kita ke it overturning, but I don't know if it goes through. But like one of them is a committee under the CFR and also in Navajo Nation Code established under those two, where make a complaint against an individual to be removed from the office. But that never happened because I guess it didn't go forward. But what happens with those legislation that they approve from maybe a chapter, district, or agency, or any other committees? Do you guys ever receive some of those complaints that they file with from these small committees, and like I said, some are established under the CFR or the Navajo Nation Code? Thank you.
Are there any other committee members who'd like to ask questions at this time?
Delegate James here again, Chanel.
Delegate James, you have the floor.
Again, thank you for the response, and it helps in a lot of ways to understand how to move forward, because we do have a letter that was sent to us by one of the employees, and it's very, very sad to have this understanding of this employee trying to go through the process of the current new process that was created under the CO 4814. And at this point in time, I think HESI committee has also heard the issues and concerns in regards to how the representation of Navajo Nation executive employees are being taken care of. And when it comes down to it, I believe that the current CO 4814 does not serve in the best interest in the safety of the well-being of the executive employees. And I think that's one of the focus that we need to have, that understanding, is that we had quite a bit of executive employees, Navajo Nation employees, that had gone through the COVID-19 pandemic issues. And in this case, this individual had filed and went through the procedures of the grievance process during the summer, and in the fall was denied for the information to be submitted to Office and Hearings and of Appeals. And with that, there was no justification or reason from Department of Personnel Management, in this case coming from Ms. Charlotte Bigthumb, of the reason why the information was not forwarded to Office of Hearings and Appeals when it had to do with medical condition and health issues. And so I think it is very important that we move forward in addressing this issue on how we can accommodate our Navajo Nation employees. di no da so di zintle nganda na shigi njono banan shide ido li ni go da itso di zintle ako the way this thing is set up, it is not in that perspective. And so how do we move forward is a big question that I have, and who are my contact individuals on how do we move forward to address these issues. And some individuals can afford attorneys. Some individuals of our Navajo Nation employees cannot afford an attorney to move forward. And so it really is bothering Sim, because just imagine if we had 27 that had the courtesy to come to ONLR, and most likely those 27 reside locally within Wendouraq or the surrounding areas within maybe 30, 50 mile radius. But just imagine if those others that are out there beyond the 30, 50 miles radius, if they were to come to Wendouraq, if they had the funds, if they were capable of driving due to their health condition, just imagine how high the numbers would have been. And I believe that we need to understand that our Navajo Nation employees barely make ends meet. And our salary that we pay is not compatible to outsource outside the Navajo Nation. And so I do believe that the numbers would have been high from the 27. And so going back to the letter, and if the individual had good justification and documents, even with Office of Safety and Health Administration, or the staff within the office informed the individuals that they were not directed to investigate any complaints, what do we do at this point? And so it is very, very bothersome to move forward on how we are going to take care of our Navajo Nation employees when we have this internal issues of the Navajo Nation. And when I say internal issues, it's in regards to DPM does the paperwork to hire individuals. DPM does the paperwork to do the payroll submissions, so OOC can make those payrolls. And at the same time, DPM has a director from an appointee director from President's office. And so all of that is just all internal within one small program, and it just does not suffice to have that neutral setting of how to take care of our Navajo Nation employees. And one of the other things that we also need to look into is also there's only one employee at Department of Personnel Management, which we've been naming her. She's probably sneezing away now. Ms. Charlotte Big Thumb. She's only one employee. And how many Navajo Nation employees do we have that oversees this whole cases that could be coming to DPM? And so that is one of the other areas that's bothering Sim. We only have one employee that will oversee a lot of these cases, but then how many Navajo Nation employees do we have throughout the Navajo Nation? So I believe going back to the reason of why ONLR was created and other programs were created was to address these kind of issues. And at this point in time, there's only one individual taking care of a lot of these cases, and 8 hours is not enough in a day to review a lot of these cases or on how a lot of these cases should be moving forward to Office of Hearings Appeal. So that's another question that I have in regards to the letter that was sent to HESI chair, and then also to how the information was forwarded to LOC. And so a lot of retaliation is occurring because a lot of Navajo Nation are most likely are occurring because it's all internal, and that the retaliations are happening because, you know, some of our Navajo employees have worked together for so long, and they've known each other because they've been in the positions, they've been a Navajo Nation employee for over 10, 15, 20, whatever years they're in. And so they know each other. So when it comes down to one of these individuals filing a grievance, it's just like, hey, you know what? So-and-so, this is her, this is him again, and this is where it's coming from again. And practically they know each other. And so when it comes down to it, that retaliation is just so horrible within our Navajo Nation working government. And then the intimidation and the harassment, the threats and discrimination because of the filing of this reason or for whatnot, you can really, really see it among individuals. You can really tell who is in that scenario, which programs are in that scenario. You can just, when you hear a lot of these informations coming, and then you start doing follow-ups and you start asking questions about it, you can hear you can see it in their body language, you can hear it in their voice, you can hear the reason of why it was denied, why it didn't move forward. And again, it goes back to they just know each other because they've been a Navajo Nation employee for so long, or somewhere down the road during their work history, they've came across each other or worked together as co-workers. So it's very interesting, but I really wanted to bring that up to my colleagues here at LOC and to mention that. And I know there's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 of the grievance process. And with this letter that we received, it was at step 4 status, and it was just denied. It was just denied by DPN, and that was it. I mean, end of the story. It couldn't go anywhere else. So how do we help these kind of Navajo Nation employees to move forward with their grievance process, and then how do we move forward by assisting our Navajo people? Because a lot of these Navajo Nation employees that are trying to fight and trying to file these grievances are intelligent, are smart, and they know the system, they know the Navajo Nation government, and those are the kind of individuals that we need within our Navajo Nation government that have the knowledge to move the government forward, to move the daily tasks forward in the positions that they hold. So I think a lot of this is just, political positions is just to avoid the grievance from being properly addressed by using intimidation, harassment, and threats to employees is just practically where it's coming down to as division directors. And so so I think we need to continue to move forward in trying to address this issue. I know this is our last year in our term, but let's see if we can do something within this year to address a lot of these concerns and issues regarding our Navajo Nation employees and the scenarios that they went through during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much, Kat.
Thank you for that, Delegate James. So with that, committee members, are there any other questions or comments at this time? Not hearing anything. I'm going to turn the floor back over to Mr. Curtis. The floor is yours, you and your agents.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Law and Order Committee. With regard to Mr. So's question regarding grievances against elected officials at the chapter level, we do get complaints. These are labor complaints, labor issues grievance complaints about maybe a chapter president firing one of the chapter employees. And when that happens, that has to go through the DPM grievance procedure. If it happens in a certified chapter, then we can hear those complaints at our office. We can entertain that complaint and make an investigation if it's a certified chapter. But if it's non-certified, then it has to go through the DPM grievance procedure. To answer Mr. James, Honorable Delegate James' concerns, I want to share with you that we have a lot of businesses that we have to investigate, that we follow up, that we get complaints from, and then we have to do on-site visits at these construction sites also to make sure that these construction companies are in compliance with Navajo preference laws and that they're paying our Navajo people the proper prevailing wage at these construction sites. So we have that field responsibility that we have to conduct. But we also have to hear or address grievance complaints from Navajo Nation enterprises, schools that operate on Navajo Nation, hospitals that operate on Navajo Nation, all the construction sites. We have private employers on Navajo Nation. We have restaurants. We have stores, gasoline stations, and convenience stores and supermarkets that we have people filing complaints with us from those types of businesses that we have to investigate. And these are companies and businesses that operate on Navajo Nation. And just with the amount of staff that we have, sometimes it can be overwhelming, especially before the pandemic began. It was quite a bit of complaints that we had received. Since the pandemic, it has gone down a little. But with regard to Delegate James's concerns, there's probably changes to the law that can take place that somebody can sponsor on the council to amend this law and return it back to its original form. But it has to be a funded mandate. It can't be unfunded because we need the funding for additional staff and additional offices out in the field. That comes with vehicles, offices, phones, and so forth. All those operational costs that we have to incur. With regard to Mr. So, he had additional concern about the elected officials. The elected officials, if they have a complaint, if an employee has a complaint against them, then that can only be addressed if they're non-certified. But if they're certified, we can take care of that. If it is a misconduct complaint against an elected official, then we have to refer that to the Ethics and Rules Office. They handle those complaints and those matters. So that answers, hopefully that answers your questions, Mr. So and Mr. James. Madam Chair, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Curtis. So with that, committee members, are there any other questions or comments at this time? Not hearing anything, we're going to go ahead and proceed forward then to accept the report that has been given to us here by Mr. Ron Curtis, the Program Manager 1 for the Office of Navajo Labor Relations on cases being referred back to the Department of Personnel Management. A motion and a second was established. Sherelle, you did document the motion and the second for the report. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So with that, since there are no other questions, we're going to go ahead and proceed forward to the vote. Joelle, can you assist us with the roll call vote, please?
Yes. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate Jam votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote?
Vote is okay.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazi, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazi votes green. Honorable Otto So is excused. Honorable Madam Chair Charles Mooney, have 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and chair not voting. Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Sherelle. So with that, Mr. Curtis and also Mr. Damon, thank you so much for your time and for presenting today regarding the Navajo labor relation cases. So with that, you are hereby excused. So we'll proceed forward to item 5B as in boy, report from Sergeant Tyler Lynch, PACE Supervisor Ronald Silversmith, Police Captain, and Chief of Police Daryl Noon on the gang and drug activities on the Navajo. Do we have Sergeant Lynch? Do we have Captain Silversmith and Police Chief Daryl Noon on the line?
Sergeant Tyler Lynch is present.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch, for announcing yourself. Mr. Ronald Silversmith, are you on the line? Chief Noon, are you on the line? Okay, not hearing anything. We're going to go ahead and give the floor at this time to Mr. Lynch. Mr. Lynch, I don't believe that you reported to this committee before. You will have 20 minutes to present your information on the topic of gang and drug activities on the Navajo Nation. During this time, you can call upon 2 agents to help assist you with your presentation. When you're completed with your presentation, if you could let the committee know that you are done so that we can go ahead and at that point, start asking questions based on the report that you provided to us here today. During this time, I'd like to remind everyone who is on the call to make sure that your phone is muted. If your phone is not muted, we will hang up on you and you'll have to call back in again. So with that, Mr. Lynch, do you have any questions on the procedure regarding the presentation today?
No, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. So with that, we're going to go ahead and turn the floor over to you at this time. Oh, I'm sorry. I need a motion and a second to hear the report from Mr. Lynch, the PACE Supervisor on the gang and drug activities on the Navajo Nation. Committee members? Committee members, second call. We need a motion and a second to hear the report. Motion made by Honorable Eugene So. Can I get a second?
Second, Delegate James.
Second by Delegate Vince James. So with that, Mr. Lynch, I'm sorry, Sergeant Lynch, you do have the floor for 20 minutes for your presentation. Thank you.
Morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Sergeant Tyler Lynch. Yate Tyler Lynch. Inshia Tachitni Nishne. Wangahdi Buses Chin. Currently, I am the Proactive Crime Enforcement Program Supervisor. If you guys could turn to the presentation that was provided, and I will go ahead and begin. Deputy Chief and Chief of Police could not make it today. They have other obligations, but they have full faith and confidence in me to present on behalf of them. So if you guys are turned to the first slide, it's just an introduction of our program. And going to the second slide, who we are. So we are the Navajo Nation Proactive Crime Enforcement Unit. Right now it comprises of 2 full-time police officers and 2 police sergeants. conduct a wide variety of drug investigations. These operations include highway interdiction, surveillance operations, confidential source management, and undercover operations. And I do apologize if sometimes I talk too fast. I'm very passionate about working drugs and getting criminals off the street, so sometimes I get ahead of myself and talk too fast. But the Navajo Nation Proactive Crime Enforcement Unit utilizes resources from Navajo Nation and its partnerships with tribal, federal, state, county, and city agencies. We are striving to create lasting partnerships with these agencies, and we are currently deputized under United States Code Title 21, which is the drug enforcement for federal law, to enforce federal law through Safe Street Task Force. Officers can enforce federal, tribal, and state laws. Who we are. Myself and my two officers, we are SWAT members, allowing us to be tactical operators if needed to react to multiple threats during covert operations. The PACE unit has attended numerous advanced trainings, including social media investigation, highway interdiction, basic criminal investigations, drug investigations, basic SWAT schools, and undercover narcotics investigations. We pride ourselves in our professionalism and hold drug resource meetings with our partner agencies to strategize and share information. And I do apologize. I am on the third slide right now. So if you guys could move over to the third slide, there should be a picture of Navajo Nation police car, and there's actually me questioning somebody behind you don't see my face, but I'm questioning somebody in the back of that police car, and that is all the way in Torreon, New Mexico. We teach and share information through advanced officer training and teaching at Navajo Police Academy. So we do advanced officer training. Two of us are able to teach other police officers, and I'm trying to get the third one of us to be a general instructor. That way we can share our information with patrol and criminal investigations. If we move over to the fourth slide now. These are our objectives. We have 5 of them. This is, I'm still in the process of getting this policy approved, but these are going to be our main objectives. Number 1, to reduce the rate of violent crimes associated with drug trafficking and drug use, bootlegging, and other crimes involving firearms. Number 2, to implement strategies to interdict the availability and flow of illicit drugs and profits from these activities. Number 3, to employ investigative techniques that target offenders, locations, and organizations involved in illicit narcotics activities. Number 4, to utilize intelligence-driven law enforcement, planning to coordinate and maximize the collaborative resources available. And number 5, to work towards reduction in demand, availability, and chronic use of drugs. So those are our 5 objectives. That's what we strive to do every day. If you move over to slide number 5, proactive versus reactive criminal enforcement responses. So proactive crime enforcement, that's in the name of our unit. With the increase in violent crimes across Navajo Nation, this program conducts proactive crime enforcement patrols in response to illegal drug activities involving use of firearms and other physical threats. Response to immediate community concerns involving gang violence that involve threats of violence by use of firearms and physical assaults. DIOs, which is a drug interdiction officer, conduct active patrols to reduce crime associated with drug use. Navajo Nation Police Patrol may not have the time between reports, answering calls for service, and other obligations to be proactive, and are more reactionary due to staffing and geography. I say geography because Navajo Nation is big, and sometimes it takes a while to get from one side of a district to the other, and that takes time, and Navajo Nation Patrol doesn't have a lot of it, so they're more reactionary than proactive. Our role in PACE, our sole mission is to be proactive. What we do is we try to make new cases that would have otherwise not have been investigated. Following slides will explain how we accomplish being proactive. So, how do we accomplish our mission? Number 1 is highway interdiction. This is pretty much the bread and butter of our PACE unit. All illicit drugs come from somewhere. Most origins of illegal narcotics start in Mexico, where they get smuggled in the United States illegally usually in bulk kilos or pounds. Drugs get transported to source cities across the United States, such as Phoenix, Arizona. Local drug dealers then travel to these source cities to pick up from anywhere to a couple grams to several pounds of illegal narcotics to sell and distribute to local communities, that being our tribal reservation or Navajo reservation. This whole process takes place on highways in the United States of America. Drug interdiction officers trained to detect abnormal driving behaviors commonly associated with criminality. These behaviors lead to traffic stops if a traffic violation of Title 14 has occurred. Drug interdiction officers train in detecting deceptive behavior and interview techniques determine if there is criminal activity. If you move over to slide number 7 now, there should be a picture of the Navajo Nation Police Unit. So continuing with highway interdiction, if criminal activity is detected, the drug interdiction officer will attempt to find probable cause for vehicle search or gain consent to search. The criminal activity that you come across during traffic stops and doing interdiction, it can range from anything from arrest warrants, unpaid traffic tickets, to transporting illegal drugs, or even human trafficking. Highway interdiction is helpful in a variety of different ways. One is intelligence gathering. We interview these people that we pull over, and even if we do not have a crime that they committed, a lot of them are users or do know more information of where to get drugs, how much they purchase drugs for, the process, and my two guys that are working for me, they're good at it. Criminal prosecution. If there is a violation of the law, then we can obviously prosecute them, whether that be tribally, state, or federally. This is also a way we create confidential sources. If these people know a little bit more, or if they're willing to work for us, we can, in the future, pay them for information and or pay them for conducting controlled buys of illegal narcotics. And also, this is a deterrent of criminal activities. We'll be on the highways, we'll be on city streets, we'll be on back roads and be highly visible. We'll be in that marked patrol unit, and in that area, it deters criminal activity due to the high visibility. So highway interdiction is the main tactic used by the proactive crime enforcement unit. So moving on to slide number 8. Another way we conduct business is through surveillance operations. Information gathered from highway interdiction, community complaints, or patrol sections can lead to the need for surveillance of a target. Surveillance may be needed to further an investigation or confirm possible violations of the law. This process happens in covert settings. Officers will be in plain clothes, unmarked vehicles. The use of cameras, binoculars, spotting scopes are tools that we use. Information gathered can range from who lives at a house, the frequency of people stopping at a location, for how long, descriptions of vehicles, license plates, persons, and more. Moving to slide number 9. Highway interdiction alongside surveillance is used by officers. Officers relay information about buyer or dealer vehicles to nearby units that conduct interdiction. Surveillance is a valuable tool to further investigation and usually does not deter crime, as we're not visible out in the public. We're kind of trying to be covert. These operations are usually lengthy and take multiple officers or agents to conduct. So if we're surveilling a house, it usually takes anywhere from 2 to 3 officers to do it safely.
I'm
So
sorry.
it does take,
Hold on. Somebody is not muted. Lorraine, can you make sure everybody is muted? That's very disrespectful to Sergeant Lynch in the presentation he's providing to the Law and Order Committee. I apologize for that, Sergeant Lynch. The floor is yours.
Okay. Continue on to slide number 10. Confidential source management. During investigation, citizens, drug users, convicted criminals may have information or access to targets that lead to a criminal conviction. Depending on the source, they may want to be compensated, whether monetary or legally. These sources can lead to information of potential targets where and when contraband is available and undercover purchases of narcotics. PACE unit works close with Navajo Nation courts and United States Attorney's Office to manage confidential sources. Safety is paramount, and confidential sources are strictly confidential to the PACE unit or law enforcement partners due to the high-risk threat and danger of criminal enterprises. Currently, our confidential sources are managed by or through the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Division of Drug Enforcement, and the Federal Bureau of Investigations. So right now, Navajo Nation, we're not paying anybody, and we're managing these confidential sources through BIA or FBI. You move over to slide number 12. It'll say Undercover Narcotics Investigations. So this is another tactic we use. The Navajo Nation PACE unit is trained and has used undercover techniques to prosecute criminals. These investigations are lengthy and covert. Officers in a UC role are in civilian clothes, ordinary vehicles, and highly secretive. Undercover officers purchase illegal contraband unknown to the criminal to prosecute them in a court of law. So we say illegal contraband because it could be anything from drugs to guns to stolen property, and this is all used as probable cause for prosecution. These operations require staffing and time and can be dangerous depending on lack of information gathered. This technique is used less frequently due to resources. And moving to slide number 13, Undercover Narcotics Investigations. Undercover operations are usually in conjunction with BIA, Division of Drug Enforcement, and the FBI. These operations are necessary when enough gathered information to further criminal investigations. These operations are highly confidential, and operational security is strictly adhered to ensure safety. Moving to slide 14, and this is pretty much why we need a drug unit on the reservation. One is a higher use of drugs usage reported per capita on tribal reservation. This is a report from the Addiction Center. Recent findings from 2018 National Survey on Drug Use and Health include 10% of Native Americans have substance use disorder, 4% of Native Americans have an illicit drug use disorder, 7.1% of Native Americans have an alcohol use disorder, nearly 25% of Native Americans report binge drinking in the past month. Native Americans are more likely to report drug use in the past month or year than any other ethnic group. Additionally, we're on slide 15 now. Additionally, the rate of substance dependence or abuse is higher among Native Americans than any other population group in the country. Native Americans have the highest methamphetamine abuse rates, including past month use at more than 3 times the rate than any other group. They are also more likely to report drug abuse in the past month or year than any other ethnic group. Substance abuse and addiction are major concerns among young Native Americans. Results from the 2018 survey show that nearly 1 in 5 Native American young adults age 18 to 25 had a substance use disorder, including 11% with illicit drugs and 10% with alcohol. Survey also indicates that approximately 4 in 10 Native American adolescents have a lifetime prevalence of illicit drug use. Moving on to slide 16, I have some pictures. These are old pictures from an old meth in Indian country presentation, but this shows some of our youth using meth. One is in a vehicle, and the other, they're using meth at a school. Drugs lead to other crimes, such as child neglect and abuse, elderly abuse, armed robbery, sexual crimes, weapons violations, burglary and theft, homicides, suicides, assault and battery, and carjacking. Moving on to slide 17, why we need a drug unit. One is lack of resources and staffing. The basic patrol, or each patrol district, the 7 patrol districts on the Navajo Reservation, do not have adequate staffing to meet the needs of a prolonged drug investigation. They have calls for service that they need to do, different operations that they have planned, different searches that come up, so they do not have the time to do a proper drug investigation, which can be lengthy sometimes, anything ranging from a month to about 5 months, depending on the investigation. Navajo Nation Police lacks the resources and staffing to conduct drug investigations. This unit can be self-sufficient and work remotely to combat and deter drug activities. So right now we have 3. I'm looking at getting 2 more on our unit, so we'll have 5 total. And once we do that, we'll be more self-sufficient and we won't have to call upon the police districts to help us do some of these operations. The PACE unit can collaborate and coordinate with outside agencies effectively. Officers have a higher level of training in drug investigations and tactics. They can teach other officers and the public about drug investigations. And about 90% of our calls for service are drug related. So that whether that's public intoxication or that's a domestic violence situation, a traffic accident, about 90% of these calls are drug related or have some sort of ties to drugs. Moving on to slide 16. What are the main drugs we are encountering? I would say the number 1 is methamphetamine, is the most common dangerous drug used on Navajo reservation. It's commonly called ish, G, or ice. It can be orally ingested, smoked, snorted, or injected, usually in a crystal or powder form. Usually transported from Mexico. Meth labs have declined over the past decade as it's cheaper and safer to produce and transport from Mexico. So all these drugs are moving through our highways and ending up here. It's rare that there will be a meth lab, and if it is, it's usually between just a few fellow users, and it won't be widely distributed. Moving to slide 19. Actually, if we could go back to slide 18, that is a bust that one of my officers did back in December. He wasn't on the PACE unit, but he was working with the PACE unit at the time. So he got about 54 grams of methamphetamine off the traffic stop. If you move to slide 19, alcohol. Alcohol is a drug. It's a most abused drug on the reservation. Access to alcohol makes it an easy way for criminals to make money. Usually comes from border towns and Navajo reservations. Navajo Nation police officers' most common call for service is public intoxication or domestic violence calls related to alcohol. That is one of our Navajo Nation canines, Gecko, and they did Chinle Police Department did a proactive patrol, and they got all that alcohol, I believe, on New Year's. Moving to slide 20. What are the main drugs we're encountering? And marijuana. Origins are commonly from marijuana dispensaries in border towns, and the use of recreational marijuana in Colorado, Arizona, California. These are all, this is where pretty much the marijuana is coming from. Marijuana continues to be illegal federally, although these cases are usually not taken by AUSA depending on certain parameters. Marijuana has a large black market, as dispensaries are allowed to only sell certain amounts to customers and will sell more to make larger profits. THC vape pens are also starting to make their way onto the Navajo Nation. So this was a traffic stop from my officer from Tuba City, and he got, I believe, it was around roughly 100 grams of marijuana, guns, knives, and other paraphernalia. And what we are starting to see more and more on the reservation is counterfeit fentanyl. This does have it is a Schedule II drug, so it does have some medicinal purposes as a painkiller. According to the DEA, 42% of these pills tested contains at least 2 milligrams of fentanyl, which is a potentially lethal dose. Most of these are produced in China or Mexico and smuggled into the United States of America. 1 kilogram of fentanyl has the potential to kill 500,000 people. So 1 kilogram of fentanyl is, I believe, about 20,000 pills, which has enough fentanyl in it to kill 500,000 people if used incorrectly. Opioid deaths involving deaths involving opioids rose 38.1% last year. Pharmaceutical fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is 80 to 100 times stronger than morphine. It is estimated that in 2021, 100,000 plus people died of drug overdoses. And a large contributor to that was fentanyl. Equipment. Right now, we are looking at some vehicles to purchase. We're looking at 3 Chevy Tahoes and 2 Chevy Silverados. And the estimated price is about $330,000. Right now, we're on slide 22, moving into slide 23. Right now, I'm working on the PACE uniform, which is consist of green BDU pants, black and short and long sleeve polos, black jackets, black boots, and a black outer carrier with soft armor. And then I'm also going to get us some entry, better armor for when we do high risk arrest warrants or different SWAT operations. And that's estimated about $4,000 per officer. And also looking into specialty police equipment, which includes undercover recording devices, entry tools, ballistic shields, evidence collection, office furniture, office supplies, approximately $30,000. Looking at getting ourselves weapons, training, and overtime. So I'm trying to budget all this stuff out. That way we do not run out. Total approximate for equipment, weapons, training, and overtime is about $120,000. And if you move to slide 24, I included our drug statistics from January. So drug cases open, we opened a total of 8 cases, and we had 8 drug arrests. None of those were juveniles. We have 2 federal felony cases from those drug arrests, and also 9 tribal misdemeanor cases. We seized $1,500 of cash, 4 handguns, and 1 rifle. And moving on to slide 25, we seized 920 grams of marijuana, 252 grams of methamphetamine, 4 blue M30 pills, and all for a total street value of close to $20,000. So this is our drug statistics for January. Keep in mind, I got my 2 drug interdiction officers at the very beginning of January, and 2 of us were out on COVID leave, so this is pretty much working half the month. And my guys are awesome. They're out there. They're getting drugs every day. You may not see it on the news, but depending on if we want to keep it confidential or not, but we are out there. We're putting a hurt on some of these violators out there. Let's go to number 26, or slide 26. We're going to reach a conclusion. Navajo Nation Proactive Crime Enforcement Program is still solidifying itself as a full-time unit. As we fill our 2 more vacant positions, this should give drug interdiction officers more freedom to operate independently without having to rely on staffing from police districts to conduct operations. I'd like to thank the Law and Order Committee for their time and dedication to serving Navajo people. And on slide 27, there's my contact info, my phone, and my work number. That is actually the work number is Delcon Police's dispatch number. I started off in Delcon. And if you leave a message with them, the message will get relayed to me. So moving on to slide 28. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you for that presentation, Sergeant Lynch. I will say that I have tried to open up the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation. It's not allowing me to open. So I didn't want to interrupt you because I didn't know if I was the only one that was having that issue, but I wasn't able to follow along because I couldn't open the PowerPoint presentation. But I think you gave a very detailed report. I'm hoping that when I'm able to open the PowerPoint, they'll yeah, all of my questions will be answered because I don't really have any questions at this time. But committee members, are there any questions for Sergeant Lynch at this time with the presentation that he's provided to the Law and Order Committee regarding the gang and drug activities on the Navajo Nation?
That's it, Madam Chair.
Honorable Eugene So, the floor is yours.
At den så har just tittat. Och sen I wish somehow it would be sent. I don't know how it doesn't come up sometimes. What is it? What how to not turn it on the not with downloading. My question, I don't know how you order I'd make that young share. Either than say either than Nalan from this case. With that, I would know more. What can you might be to me? Aiding region leader. Send me to Ken. In Shado. What for the Abbas thinking on it. What for the Chanel? It are in a certain leader as it are. I'll just say you have seen them. So my question is in regards to these gangs that is that compromise the whole Chinle area. I used to take a walk in the evening or in the morning. That whole Chinle area was my playground, where the old police station is all the way to the fifth way in the back on the west side. All that's developing right now, but it's beginning to be real hard to walk across the wash there. I have a cornfield across there where I plant my corn and my melons, and I have hay across there. So I tend to. I got a shack over there I use. I stay. So over the week and 2 weeks ago, I think my brother passed on. That's almost the same day, but 8 days ago, I think now. They found 2 bodies again right there in the wash. They're not the only ones. There's a lot out there. So it's beginning to be scary in Chinle. And everybody's beginning to have a weapon. Make sure it's loaded before they go to sleep and lock the doors. Some of them even have bars on their doors and their windows. Always wonders that where we're headed. Sometimes I feel that way because all the business are like that. So, and then these drugs, they're flowing all over the place, everywhere. I would see them, people selling, and I always report, but there was no avail. I don't get no response back. But these are happening. About last year or beginning of the year, I think there was a guy that came around to my house and shooting his weapon. I misplaced my weapon. Maybe I would have shot him because he pointed a gun at me. I don't know, was his by the grace of God, I guess he's still alive. So anyway, those are the conditions now where we're at. This is where we're all are headed to. The more it gets worse. A lot of people just buying weapons left and right. Now they have automatic weapons. And then also they can just order it by mail and they can put them together. And there's no serial numbers on these things. So sometimes I just feel this way. And when are we going to get our reservation back? When are we going to stop these very immature games that are out there that are gaining up on people and terrorizing the whole nation? And my recent report was regards to some ladies that has their husband working off the reservation. Sometimes a week at a time. They don't come back. Maybe Phoenix, Albuquerque, Denver, they'll come back and they're home alone. And the reason I heard was they know who they are, these gang members. So they go to those people, the young ladies with their kids, and they terrorize them, requesting for sex. And some do it because they don't want to die. They don't want their kids to die or their husband to die. It's really getting bad out there. I'm very sorry to say, but I don't know what we can do. But this is the situation we're in now on the Navajo Nation, where we're headed to. Seems like the more gangs, the more police, and more gangs, and more police. We're just in a race. I don't know who's going to win. It seems that we're racing all the time because of gangs. All these things are happening. See, fine. See, all on this case, it's not that I get caught. Because it's just how you got your car and it's a car. Or tell do not start. You have to turn off the lights when the sun goes down. And turn back the lights on when the sun comes up. But that's I'm pretty sure all other places are like that. Shiprock and Tuba City and Port Defiance, etc. Those big places, Calm Point. When are we going to turn it around? That we don't let the gangs control us no more. They're controlling us right now. So with that, I wanted to know what the plan is. Are we going to bring more people? What are we going to do? Are we going to do away with weapons on the Navajo Nation? What can we do? I've got a legislation. I guess I have to drop before next year. Is 3 strikes you're out. Get rid of these people that don't want to live in the Navajo Nation by just killing them or terrorizing them or giving them drugs, alcohol. We're at that point now. But who's going to enforce them? Where can we get the money to fund the police department? I know we don't have enough. The ratio is way, way off. More Navajos, the less police we get. I don't know, the 638 contract has been revisited. Maybe the data was back 20 years ago, or maybe 40, when there was less Navajos on the reservation. And we only needed a few policemen on horseback. So those are the questions that I have. I don't know what we can do or what you can offer us to make a legislation to push it. What can we, where, in what area do you need help? So we can put down some laws where is what I'm listening to for. Thank you. Hey, say all and also that's it, Madam Chair.
Yeah, Delegate Eugene. So thank you for that. That was a lot of comments and some questions. So before I turn the floor back over to the presenter, are there any other questions or comments from the members of Law and Order Committee? Okay, not hearing anything. I'm going to turn the floor back over to Sergeant Lynch. The floor is yours.
Thank you for your comments. My main clans, keep in mind, I'm not a traditional speaker in Navajo, but my main clans are Chachitni, Winnegatni, Kiani, and Bilagana. So as far as the gang problem on the reservation, it is an issue of staffing. As Navajo Nation population goes up, it seems that the Navajo Nation Police Department has stayed at the same level, never really surpassing 200 officers. Right now, I don't want to speak too much on Navajo Nation's behalf. I can only speak on my unit's behalf, the PACE program. But they are diligently trying to hire more officers. And I know there is a large workforce on the Navajo Nation that isn't working, and there are motivated people out there that want to make the community better. So one thing we can do is just try to educate our young Navajo population to try to be police officers, because we need that staffing. We need more officers out there. As far as my unit, we are only 3, myself and 2 officers, and that's covering 7 districts, 27,000 square miles, and the most recent polling or census count is 400,000 enrolled members. Keep in mind about half of that live on the Navajo reservation, so about 200,000. Right now, we are trying to do more proactive controls where we do knock and talks and pretty much identify people on the streets, whether they're at that street corner, try to find some sort of criminal activity going on. So we are doing that. And as far as I know, in Chinle District, my officer working out there, he, due to his proactiveness and getting, I believe he got about 200 grams of methamphetamine off of a traffic stop. That really quieted down at least the Pinon area. And there's been a lot of calls for pretty much people going into, sorry, lost my train of thought. People going into DTs and stuff such as that. But we are out there. We are trying to work as hard as we can. As far as legislation, more staffing and more money for staffing, at least on the patrol side, would always benefit Navajo Nation Police Department. I hope that answered your questions. I know it's kind of not the right answer you're looking for, but I can only answer to the best of my ability. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sergeant Tyler, for that. Committee members, are there any other questions or comments at this time? Sergeant Tyler, I want to thank you for the presentation. And again, I'm still not able to open the PowerPoint presentation. Lorraine, can you please print out the PowerPoint presentation for the committee members and put it in our box so we do have a copy of that? At the same time, we, Sergeant Lynch, I'm sorry, did I call you Sergeant Tyler earlier? I do want to let you know that the Law and Order Committee has been working to amend Title 17, which is the criminal code. We have been working with Director Jesse Delmar, as well as Captain Silver Smith and Sergeant Sinisha, who has been involved in this as well. We did at one time ask the prosecutor's office to see if they can amend the bail portion of or the I guess it is the bail portion of Title 17 as a way to help officers. And we are aware that that many of our officers are telling us that it's kind of a catch and release system that has been going on for several years now on the Navajo Nation. And we have been working to try to address that. But at that same time, I do want to make you aware that Delegate Eugene So has proposed a 3 strikes and you're out. I'm not sure if you are familiar with that, but Delegate Eugene So, if he, as he starts moving forward to drop that legislation, I don't know if he has already, but that would be to any bootlegger or any drug dealer who has been caught on and sentenced, meaning they've gone to court and they've been found guilty on their third offense. On their third offense, they will lose their census, their Navajo census number, and they will be escorted off the Navajo Nation. And so we are still trying to work out the details with that, but hopefully that will maybe help the communities. We have proposed this to the communities. I know that I proposed it on Facebook. I didn't get, we have yet to hear anybody in opposition of that, which is really interesting. And even on Facebook, there hasn't really been much opposition. I think the communities and the people here on the nation are really tired of seeing the bootleggers and the drug dealers, that are happening. I've heard, and we have visited several communities on the Navajo Nation, both in 2019, and then we started back up in 2021 again. And we still continue to meet with communities. We have been hearing the same issues presented by the communities, and a lot of it is really just the bootleggers and the drug dealers. So with that, I just want you to know that we are working on that, and it would be great if we could get some feedback from you. I know that there is a chain of command, so because we do have Captain Silversmith, Director Delmar, and Sergeant Sanisha, who has been, cooperating and participating in this Title 17 amendment. I'm hoping that maybe you can provide us some information on your thoughts to this 3 strikes and you're out law that we are currently considering. And again, we are waiting for Delegate Eugene So to drop that legislation so that we can start moving forward to bring it to various groups to start the process. We have already started the victim rights legislation. That legislation has been completed, and I'm working with Delegate Crotty as well as various groups to see if we are in agreement with that, with the language that has been stated in the new amended legislation. It hasn't been dropped yet because we are still in the process of meeting with various groups. However, we would like to invite you at the time that we do have that discussion, because I think that sharing this information is not only relevant to this legislation that we are currently proposing, but it's also important for delegates to see and to understand, what really is happening here on the Navajo Nation. So I just want to make that clear. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to let you know, again, because Delegate Eugene So had alluded to the 3 strikes and you're out law. And that's really what we are working on right now, is to try to, try to get tougher with our laws and make it known that, we're no longer going to tolerate this. So I just want to make you aware of that. Committee members, are there any questions or any comments at this time for Sergeant Lynch?
Madam Chair,
Delegate Eugene So, the floor is yours.
I'm going to drop this one here as soon as possible. It's going to be for the spring session, though. So let's push it to spring session. See what other council delegate will say. Eddie, thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Delegate Eugene. So with that, we, Sergeant Lynch, the date has been set. We're going to try to get it pushed through by spring session. So with that, committee members, are there any other questions or any comments to the presentation that has been provided to the committee this morning? Okay, not hearing anything. We're going to go ahead and proceed forward to accepting the report. Again, Sergeant Lynch, we appreciate you being here. Sherelle, can you assist us with the roll call vote, please?
Madam Chair, I can do the roll call. I think Sherelle's.
Go ahead, Lorraine. You can assist us with the roll call vote, please.
Okay. Armovich James, how do you vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Okay, Armovich James votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote?
Oh, the case is it or case?
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Otto So is excused. Honorable Epinyazi, how do you vote? Honorable Epinyazi, how do you vote? Madam Chair, you have 2 in favor, 2 not voting, and 1 excuse. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Lorraine. So with that, 2 in favor, 1 excused, one not voting, and the chair not voting. The report from Sergeant Tyler Lynch, the PACE supervisor, has been accepted. The report was provided on gang and drug activities on the Navajo Nation. A motion, a second was established, and a vote was taken. So with that, Sergeant Lynch, we appreciate your time and we appreciate the presentation that you provided for us here today. You are excused.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. Also, if you guys want me to present to you guys at a future date, please contact me. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Sergeant Lynch. So with that, we are moving down to item number 6, old business. There is none. Item number 7, we do have 2 items. The first is a discussion on the leadership meeting with Budget and Finance Committee and Law and Order Committee regarding conditions of appropriations, legislation concerns for judicial branch. We do have to select a date. Lorraine, just as a, I guess, just for clarification here, is Budget and Finance aware of this meeting?
Yes, Madam Chair, I've been corresponding with Peggy Nykai, the advisor for Budget and Finance, and she's the one that wanted to know the dates that you'll be meeting with the Budget and Finance Committee. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Lorraine. So with that, committee members, this would be outside of our regular Law and Order Committee meeting. I would suggest that we do this on a Friday only because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we do have committee meetings. Thursdays, the second and the fourth Thursday of every month, we do have Nabikiatske. And then Fridays are really kind of open days that I think we could schedule these meetings. We currently have a meeting scheduled on March 25th with RDC, and this is regarding Honorable Eugene So's legislation. Lorraine, can you remind me again on the 25th what time the meeting is scheduled?
Madam Chair, the time will be at 10, and they suggested a place, and it'll be down at Twin Arrows.
At 10 o'clock?
Yes.
And this is RDC. Okay. Thank you for that, Lorraine. So with that, committee members, on the 25th, we do have a joint RDC work session, and this is again regarding Honorable Eugene So's legislation. So that means that we technically have the 11th and the 18th that's available. I am not available on the 4th. I will be on travel. So committee members, if you are good with it, we can propose the 11th or the 18th to the Budget and Finance Committee regarding the appropriations, the conditions of appropriations for the judicial branch. Any thoughts on that? Okay, since it sounds like we are okay with that as those 2 days as being options, Lorraine. So with that, committee members, can I get a motion and a second on this discussion purpose? Committee members, Honorable Eugene So, Honorable Edmund Yazi, Honorable Vince James. We do need a motion and a second, and let the record show that we do have Chair Daniel So, who is on the line with us this morning. Chair So, would you like to introduce yourself at this time?
Motion, Delegate Jane.
Oh, yeah, yes. Madam Chair, Charles Newton, out of Honorable Law and Order Committee members. Saya, so this is in I had the opportunity to listen to the discussion on
ONLR. And I had basically been asked to sponsor the legislation to reinstate the powers that the Labor Commission had previously held. And so that is something that is will probably happen this coming Monday. The other is I appreciate the discussion on the aspects of gang activity and the aspect of having a lot of drugs come through the Navajo Nation. And the state roads and the county roads that come into our areas, they are the avenues for that drug to make it to the nation. And the thing about it is the part about fentanyl, methamphetamine, and what I'm hearing is our kids are making that their smoking cocktail. And it makes them fearless, and it makes them to where they don't make good decisions. Mix that with a little bit of alcohol, and they are hard to control. So that's what I'm hearing, and certainly it's and for New Mexico, just the aspect of recreational marijuana coming in. Some of the older folks are really just worried. And again, the conditions that Brother Eugene So talked about, our folks are having to put a gate around the fence of their home site or residential lease. And they don't do anything in the evenings. They're just stuck at home. And so that is that the new trend? And how do we, I hope it's not the new normal. We just have to make sure that the Drug Enforcement Task Force remains in place. And at some point in time, we're going to have to ask the U.S. Marshals and the FBI to come to the nation, because all of those activities interchange with federal law. That may be the process that we follow rather than trying to enforce Navajo Nation law. So those are some things, Madam Chair, that would be the extent of my comments, and I appreciate it. And again, let me back up. The Division of Personnel Management being an obstacle regarding a safe and a healthy workplace. A workplace that is without intimidation or harassment, or a workplace where they are not threatened. They can't be denying. And certainly that's one of the aspects that we really have to look at. And that's what precipitates the need for the reestablishing the ONLR, the old law. That would be the extent of my comments. As though members of the LOC and all the folks on the this particular call. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Chair. So with that, we do have a motion that has been established at this time by Honorable Vince James. Can I get a second? And this is regarding the discussion.
Oh, okay, see. That's it.
Second by Honorable Eugene So. And again, Lorraine, this is to give to Budget and Finance the two dates. We have the 11th or the 18th. We are available during that time. And so hopefully either of those days will work for them. So with that, committee members, are there any other questions or comments at this time? Not hearing anything, let's go ahead and proceed forward to the vote. Cheryl or Lorraine, can you assist us with the roll call vote, please?
Okay, Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote?
What is, oh, don't say it.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Otto So is excused. Honorable Madam Chair Charles Newton, you have 3 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 excused, and Honorable Madam Chair Charles Newton not voting, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Cheryl. So with that, committee members, we do have two alternative dates that have been presented. So we move down to the next item on the agenda, and that is the discussion regarding the Lachey chapter visit. This chapter visit, the chapter has requested that we do meet with them on March
21st.
March 21st. That's right. So it's a regular Law and Order Committee meeting date. It would be at 10 o'clock at Lachey chapter. Committee members, I will need a motion and a second so that we can discuss this discussion item.
Oh, there you see. That's it.
Motion made by Honorable Eugene So. Can I get a second?
Okay, all right. Second, Delegate James.
Second made by Honorable Vince James. So with that, committee members, are there any questions or comments at this time based on the date of March 21st? That is Lachey chapter inviting us out to Lachey, Arizona to talk about public safety and justice in the community. Okay, not hearing anything, I will assume that we are good with the 21st as the date to meet with Lachey chapter. Cheryl, can you assist us with the roll call vote? And Lorraine, please make sure that that the date.
One question.
Yes, Honorable Eugene So, go ahead.
Is there a motel over there and some fishing?
Honorable Eugene So, there are several motels or hotels. As far as fishing, I was just there last week, and that Lake Powell is more like a pond. I was very surprised to see how low the water is. So I don't know about fishing. So with that, Lorraine, Cheryl, if you could assist us with the roll call vote, please.
Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote? Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Madam Chair Charles Newton, you have 3 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 excused. Honorable Otto So and Honorable Madam Chair Charles Newton not voting, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Cheryl. So with that, the meeting in Lachey chapter has been set for March 21st. Our meeting will start at 10 o'clock a.m. so that make sure that that gets reflected in the next agenda, Lorraine. So with that, committee members, we are now at the close of the meeting. Before I ask for a motion in a second, are there any announcements? Committee members, just an announcement that on the 24th, we do have a meeting at 10 o'clock scheduled, which is a regular Navikiatsket meeting. However, we also received a email that Brian Newland, the Assistant Deputy Director for the Department of Interior, is going to be in Window Rock that day. So check your emails. I am preparing right now the Law and Order Committee booklet, and also what the Law and Order Committee needs are to remind them, and hopefully do an invitation out. I'm going to see what his schedule looks like so that he can take a tour of the Window Rock Police Department, which needs to be replaced, and possibly the Shiprock Police Department. I doubt that he'll have that time, but to make that invitation during that time. So with that, committee members, that's the only announcement that I have at this time. Can I get a motion and a second to adjourn?
Madam Chair, can you include our police academy, Chinley? I'll motion for adjourn.
Yes, we can definitely do that. Nikita, are you on the line? Nikita? Yes, we will definitely do that, Honorable Eugene. So we'll make sure that that gets included as well. So with that, we do have a motion established by Honorable Eugene. So can I get a second? And this is to adjourn. Second call for a motion to, or a second to adjourn.
Second, Delegate James.
Second made by Honorable Vince James. So with that, committee members, let's go ahead and proceed forward to the vote. Sherelle, can you assist us with the roll call vote, please?
Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote?
Vote is dog, yes.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Otto So is excused. Honorable Madam Chair Charles Newton, we have 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and Chair not voting, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Sherelle, with 3 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting, and 1 delegate excused. The Law and Order Committee for the 24th Navajo Nation Council hereby adjourns at 12:38 p.m. Thank you, everyone who's been listening in. We appreciate you putting your phone on mute, and we have our regular scheduled Law and Order Committee to take place next week on the 28th at 10 o'clock a.m. Thank you and have a nice day.